as we move along, I'm getting more and more excited about the topics, even though they are now into the territory of ages that I have absolutely no experience of. I'm younger, and maybe you're thinking, how do I know what to tell you about age 56, 63 today? But hopefully, if we go along the cycle and we follow the logic of the planets, and this other idea that I was trying to, in a way, sell you during the last 8 talks, that maybe we can take one planet, see that this planet has so much to do with this particular period of 7 years in our life, and it receives like an accent. So exploring a little bit more, what is this planet about all along, and in particular during this age, and also registering where we are in the cycle of Uranus, around the sun and around itself, in terms of your own birth chart. Basically, these 12 talks are about Uranus moving in steps of 30 degrees in the zodiac all through our life, and giving us a sign that every time we switch to a new period, there is a moment of readjustment. Something new comes to play, something new requires our attention, and we are moving on into our maturity step by step. Here, today, we are at one of the most important turning points. The second Saturn return coincides with this particular moment of Uranus, and I want to try to explain how all of this mixes, what are the main themes, and also hear back from you, like always, ideally, with some examples, feedback of how things are playing out in your own lives, or if you have already passed this age period, what happened, how did you feel about it, and whether you can connect it and for yourself, maybe hopefully illuminate it a little bit more based on the information that I'm going to share today. So I decided to go through this journey. Now we are at the 9th step today, and that's what I call the astrology of maturity. We are, I think, at the peak of our contribution to ourselves and society when we are just about to turn 60 years old. And 30 years is the other side, the other time which we can go back to and get some relevant ideas, because there is so much in common between the first and the second Saturn returns. So we would touch on the actual transits that are typical for age 56, 63 that fall into this category a bit later on the second round. But now I want to begin with the mix between planet and zodiac correspondence. So 12 times 7 years, every time one of the signs of the zodiac is giving a main theme. Something that we now need to move on to logically as a next step. Last time we spoke about the Scorpionic Plutonian intensity of the period between 49 and 56. Now we are in the Sagittarian age, and it is a moment when, if we think of the significance of the sign Sagittarius as a symbol, we would discover that it begins a moment of new exploration, potentially. Even though we are aging, this is not the end of the world, and we can maybe realize that new opportunities in a Sagittarian style are opening up to us, because this is a moment of moving on from a water sign to a fire sign. And there is always this enthusiasm and desire for expansion that we associate with Sagittarius. I believe that period is really very much Sagittarian in that way. And it brings forward the idea of summing up experience, especially the most intense part of that experience in the previous Scorpio stage that we went through, and finding out what sort of conclusions and meaning we can draw out of it. And then I believe it's not just about Sagittarius, but also the planet, that now we have to realize how it has been playing out in our life, whether we're happy with it, whether it's been successful or not for ourselves, is our own natal sun. The sun, in a way, this time around at this age, especially when you reach 60, is bringing forward the harvest of the life that has been lived up to that point, especially everything that we decided to invest in, to put our efforts in between 30 and 60. And now we are reaching a point when it comes to light, what was in line with our own true solar direction, and what we may have been just involving ourselves in because we were following a different path that wasn't really our own path. It is the life of productivity and competition that we have been living so far in the stage 30 to 60, the so-called productivity stage of life. Saturn very interestingly splits life into these 30-year periods. We are right at the start of this third one in a moment, in the ninth step of Uranus. And a Sagittarian spirit of adventure may be there if we have now consolidated what we were doing in the last 30 years. And it's like a preparation to do something like this. We are now receiving the harvest of what we have invested in and what our sun was able to produce. And we are able to see to what extent that harvest is in line with our natal sun.